I'd just like to welcome everyone to our 4th Psychological Professions Network annual conference. And I was reflecting last night as I was writing this as the last minute that this is actually the 3rd year of the network, and I think it's a sort of significant achievement to reach this milestone and sort of welcome so many of you to this event. This time 3 years ago, Claire and I were working really hard on setting up the website, never having set up a website before, thinking, well, we can get it done in a few months. We did, but it's probably better we don't know these things in advance when we start them sometimes. And I think preparing for the first ever PPN conference in March 2014. And I've been thinking about what's been achieved since then, from a very small steering group of probably 6 to 8 people to a network that's now got over 2,000 registered members. Most of us are from the Northwest, but we've also got special interest groups for psychological wellbeing practitioners, counsellors, IAP leadership and innovation, older people's champions, and so on and so on and so on. So it's a massive growth, I think, in 3 years that's just means that the network is useful, and the fact that you're all here means that the network is useful for you. And again, thinking about networks and communities, I sort of thought, well, what can we learn from how they work in other places? Probably some of you in the room will know more about communities of practice and networks than I do, but I thought I'll do a little bit of looking up. And they've been defined as groups of people who share a concern or passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. And there's I think, numerous forms of networks, and networks probably, we've all had networks. We all have networks in our lives, whether it's our neighbours or whether it's our work colleagues or whether it's our friends or whether it's about shared interests or whether it's about going to the gym but not getting there as often as you might. These are all networks that we have in our lives. But specifically, I suppose, about networks in the world of organisations and public sector, they're often focused on sharing knowledge and creating connections across different boundaries, whether those are organisational boundaries, professional boundaries, departmental boundaries or geographical boundaries. And in a way, I think our network probably covers all those different areas, because I think one of our strengths is that we are a multi-professional psychological professions network, and still, as I understand it, unique in this country. So, what's actually needed to form a successful network? The definitions require a shared domain of interest, members who build relationships to form a community, and also the practice and sharing of knowledge. Support's also needed, and I think the Psychological Professions Network's been well supported by health education in the Northwest, and in particular Neil McLaughlin continues to be our champion and sponsor. But what's important, though, is to allow a network to grow, and cultivation metaphors seem to be widely used, sowing seeds, nurturing and so on, and actually not interfering too much with growth. And one of the metaphors I liked that I came across recently was that one shouldn't yank a marigold out of the ground to see if it has roots. Which pretty much, I thought, well, yeah, that's, you do need to let things grow and just take a leap of faith that if you're getting your flowers, then there are roots there being built. And I think the PPN's been able to do this with HEE support and having a clear set of aims around psychological professions and the provision of psychological approaches. The other thing is about networks also developed through different activities, and many of these may be familiar to you as the network has developed. So requests for information or input, we do get requests for information, and we've been able to quickly signpost or find members with expertise to offer. This has never been about Claire and I knowing everything. We know about some things, we have areas of our interest and knowledge, but I think having a network of being able to say, whether it's to HEE colleagues or to strategic clinical networks or to IAP nationally, yes, we know someone who can help you with this. Liaison mental health's probably been a recent example of that, in terms of that's become a topic of national interest and importance, and we've been able to offer input and expertise from people locally. Shared learning's the other area, and all the special intergroups, I think, reflect this with various masterclasses, development days, or peer networking and support. And the other bit was around mapping knowledge and identifying gaps. We have done CPD analyses. We have looked at gaps in terms of, I think one of the biggest things that the network has achieved has been around the psychological wellbeing practitioners network. That's there probably hasn't been somewhere for PWPs to meet and to focus and to grow and develop and actually develop their own knowledge. And I think that's sort of, I suppose, evidenced by some of the training events around sort of behaviour change or bereavement that the PWPs have had over the years. And I just think it's fantastic to see all this. I'd love to go to all these events. I think they'd be absolutely fascinating, but you can't really justify that. And actually just seeing all this taking place and the network growing and developing in a sort of independent but co-created way between its members has been lovely. We've also done quite a lot on leadership training development. So some of you in the room will have been on the course, but where we've done multi-professional leadership training with our colleagues from healthcare science, pharmacy and allied health professions. And again, we're then part of a bigger network with different multi-professionals. And maybe it's like the layers of an onion, we can go on and on and on. So we've been developing as a network over the past 3 years, and I started to wonder to what extent we'd actually reached a level of maturity, notwithstanding the maturity about wearing reading glasses, but can't always have everything. And I think that led me down another track of thinking and researching a little bit about what we mean by maturity. So does a 3-year-old have maturity? You've probably got your own views on that. But I was quite entertained to find out that from a developmental point of view, we actually do expect 3-year-olds to be able to do quite a lot, including walk up and down stairs, alternating one's feet, and to bend over without falling, and to kick, throw, and catch a ball. So I'll leave that one with you in terms of how well you all feel about doing that on a regular basis. I think the other thing was around sort of understanding the idea of same and different, the concept of counting, and being able to show a wide range of emotions were all aspects of a 3-year-old. And although we're not 3-year-olds, we were all there once, and I hope we've all mostly retained our abilities. The other area was around psychological maturity, and that seemed to be quite a fraught concept in terms of definitions, with everyone reproducing Wikipedia's definition of it, and I don't know where that came from. And I thought, well, perhaps that's more about being able to manage ourselves appropriately in our environments, and perhaps being less dependent than our 3-year-old chronological selves. And as a network, I thought, well, our past events have actually focused on our work as listeners, enablers, and influencers, and also how we can bring this to the network in terms of our clinical skills, but applying that to networks, to influencing, to promoting, to sharing knowledge. And also as well as thinking about our own well-being and resilience, which we did this time last year. And I'd like to think these have helped us grow collectively, and I hope have been helpful individually. But what does network maturity mean? I think from an organisational point of view, there's some works and networks maturing, suggesting that there are a range of key elements, and I'll run through these briefly. So leadership, and I think there's something about leadership being shared among a core group, and the fact that members can influence their shared aims. And this has been a work in progress, but we have now got a workforce board with around 20 or so people who represent the different areas of interest, work, practice within the network. It's still not covered, doesn't cover everything. And I hope members feel they can influence that and look at where we do still have gaps and where people would like to develop different roles. One of the areas we've started conversations around third sector psychological approaches, and perhaps also looking at adult mental health and secondary care, because we currently don't, perhaps consider those in detail at our workforce board. But that's come from members saying, well, why don't you do something about this? And that's the way it should be. I think also, in terms of membership, people ask to join, and there are smaller groups within the community as being our elements around network maturity. I suppose people actually going on the website and registering is a way of asking to join, and I think the fact we now have over 2,000 members, and that growth has been probably, I think about 6 months ago we were around about the 1,700 mark, so the fact that even over a 3 to 6 month period, we're still getting an increase in membership, I think is great. There are smaller groups within the community. You all know about special interest groups. And I guess, I get copied into lots of emails, and as much as you think, oh no, not another email, one of the advantages of seeing all that as the chair, even though I'm not directly part of it, is you just see all the wealth of stuff going on, and the fact that people are communicating and organising things, and it's being created by people themselves. It's not being directed or formally led or controlled by either Claire or I as the sort of chair or the programme manager for the network. I think the other thing that's also about network maturity is around knowledge and practices. So tools in place to share knowledge, shared work completed, opportunities to create learning and share knowledge. All those things are happening, I think. We do want to look at a revamp of the website to see how we could do that better. But I think some of the conversations that have taken place at some of the special interest groups have enabled people to use other people's ideas in a constructive, shared way. Skills development. We've supported professional development, and I've already mentioned the SIGs, I've mentioned CPD events and multi-professional leadership. And visibility. The network's visible, and so is its contribution. And I think the network's actually becoming more visible. Both Claire and I have had inquiries from other parts of the country asking how they can develop a local PPN and also link with us, which is great news because there still isn't anything else like this anywhere else in the country. So, I suppose in that phrase, so are we actually there yet? Well, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we are going in the right direction. But what do we need more of? And I think we do need more visibility and we do need more active promotion. And I don't think we as a network or a workforce board yet know whether our members' needs or our needs as members are being met by the network. So a plea from me is please do talk about and advocate for the network. And please, please also fill in our survey, which some of you already have, so thank you for that, which asks you for feedback about the network, about the events, and about the website, so that we can actually make our network more successful and self-sustaining. I think one of the things about self-sustaining networks is that leadership is much more distributed, members' needs are much more embedded, and the network is very much part of an everyday community that people are part of. And I think we're moving towards that. But it would be great to keep growing and developing towards that. So, this time next year, when we're 4, what should we be able to do? Well, apparently an average 4-year-old should be able to stand on one foot for 10 seconds or longer, let you try on the break, and hop and somersault. Not sure I can do the somersaulting anymore. And is becoming more sociable and independent amongst other things, such as imagination, energy, drive, and bossiness. So, perhaps a few tips for us to take into the network in terms of how we can apply that. So next year, if I'm standing here, I'm not planning to stand on one foot for longer than 10 seconds. I'm sure some of you would like to see me try, but my hope is that our network continues to grow and develop and that we flourish. So thank you.